Hello, everybody. Ross here at Teacher Toolkit live for the start of the academic year 2022. And here I am, as ever, to share some ideas, some resources, some opinions. Now, for the last couple of years through the pandemic, I struggled to maintain doing a live stream every week. But my plan this year is to publish something every Monday night for your own professional development. And I'll continue to put this on Twitter, YouTube, and either LinkedIn or Facebook. So you're either watching this live with me or you're watching this later. What I'd like to share with you is a new resource drawn upon the research in my new book, The Teacher Toolkit Guide to Memory. And I'll put this screen up in a moment. That's what it looks like. I want to share you a little incarnation of the 5-minute lesson plan as a lesson planning template for you to consider throughout the year. So I think having now researched and written a book of such a kind, not being a cognitive scientist or a cognitive psychologist, a teacher very interested in cognitive science and how it improves learning. I wish I was taught this 30 years ago when I first started training to be a teacher. The more new teachers profession I see and work with, and outside of the Twitter bubble, the more I see teachers being upskilled with lots of very important knowledge outside of their subject in knowledge, as well as their behavior management and lesson planning, things that teachers typically struggle with when they start off in the profession. Most people this time of year back to school, so sorting out your timetables, all those types of things. So I'm going to start to share this resource in a moment, but I guess just from this, I believe teachers can become even better if they have a deeper understanding of learning, the conscious and subconscious aspects of how we think. Most teachers can drive a car. We can change the tire, we can put the right fuel, diesel or petrol in the car, and we can drive, but that's about it. If the car breaks down and we lift up the bonnet, we don't really know how a car works. And it's the same with teaching and learning. We can go in and pose lots of questions, manage behavior, but when it really comes to the mechanics or the anatomy of how we learn, we don't really explore that in our teacher training or in professional development enough, I think. So although this is very much a recent shift, and I think through social media and us all being able to live stream like this and share ideas, there's a bit of a shift happening here in England, particularly over the last 10 years, but I think it's getting bigger and bigger. And more of us are developing a neuroscientific approach to how we teach. And I think this is critical for teachers who work in an early years context, because we know that this is the critical period where it defines a child trying to struggle for words in terms of articulating their kind of longer period with learning in the school. And I guess educators, teachers working with students in a higher school setting, we can do a few things to embed study skills, refine how we teach, refine how students learn, to make things more explicit in order to improve retention. So getting a little distracted, it all starts with a basic understanding of how the brain functions, and you can find out more information, and I'll share some links after the video. So without any further ado, let me just get my slide up here for you. So this is a 5-minute lesson plan. Now this is an incarnation of the 5-minute lesson plan, and there are 47 other thinking templates on the website for you. So here I'm just going to walk you through the kind of step-by-step process. Again, from a lesson planning perspective, teachers, we need to consider our clear success criteria. Many pieces of research suggest that teachers must be clear and precise about the learning intentions. And of course, we have last month, last week, last lesson type retrieval mechanisms before we chunk new information and introduce today's lesson context. I guess the next stage here would be what I've just referenced, where we assess prior knowledge, where required, we check what pupils already know, what they don't know, what's stuck, and before we move on with the lesson. Many teachers will be familiar with Barrett Rosenshine's 17 Principles of Effective Instruction. If you read the original research paper, what I found most fascinating is that the phrase check for understanding features multiple times. I actually think it features 17 times last time I checked. So stage 3, mnemonics. So a 5-part sequence thread to engage in stories to help bring the curriculum to life. I've looked at lots of storytelling techniques, looked at lots of public speakers, my life public speaking in front of teachers or at keynote conferences, trying to tell engaging stories in a methodical way to help retention, to activate neurons in our brain. It's no different to what we do in the classroom. Teachers have a tougher gig to kind of hold pupils' engagement in short bursts of time. So there's a little methodology for me there. The research on direct instruction, being explicit about details, instructions, providing them in small chunks of information, 3 or 4 questions there. Behind this resource, you've got all the examples and how to go about this. Interleaving, so similar topics. So my analogy is, think of a fruit salad. You put the apples, pears, bananas inside, mix it all up, but you wouldn't put the baked beans in the same mixture. So although they're both categories of food, there are different types of subcategories, I suppose. So it's another way to look at your curriculum design, or when you're teaching students in the lesson, try to mix up similar topics to support the retention. Choose what, when, and how, of course, but don't add in kind of abstract concepts, I suppose. Retrieval practice, nothing new. It's been around for 130 years in academic sources. Teachers call it revision. We all know that when we quiz students on a regular basis and seek a high response rate, it's good for teaching and learning. Whenever I introduce a quiz in my teacher training events, the whole room comes to life. So for teachers, just that reassurance, quizzing, online bits of software, whatever you can use, or a little spelling test where you can introduce it, you're going to really engage pupils and activate their neurons. Stage 7, questioning 4. So we've got here for elaboration and self-explanation. So simple, tell me why, explain to me how, are really good study skills that teachers can respond to students on their feet. So always ask students to explain why, or to describe to you how they've arrived to their conclusions. And I would say here, plan the questions that you're going to ask. Many more teachers active on social media. So if you're watching this, I suspect you've got a good grasp of the basics of cognitive load theory. It's not a theory for everything, but it's something to be aware of, considering essential, non-essential information. So intrinsic and extraneous load. So how difficult the topic is your intrinsic. Extraneous is how it's presented, how I teach it. So I can either make a choice to support the retention, or make it difficult by starting to talk about the weather, or not presenting the topic very clearly, or rambling on and on and on. So there's all things to consider here. So how do we balance this? How can we use techniques such as dual coding? So here on this slide, I've got some images, some words, and presented it one at a time rather than everything together. We have to consider our assessments, how you'll assess the learning in written, verbal, and non-verbal forms. I try to ban myself from the words marking or feedback, and I am now at a written, verbal, non-verbal, a feedback, feed up, and feed forward methodology, and I've got those into 9 different forms. And those are some of the things that I'm sharing with teachers in some of my teacher training travels. I guess the last one, the cognition and body cognition in particular, our body, our senses. How do we provide students with high challenge and low threat? So to pitch challenge perfectly without it becoming stressful, where it shuts us down. So thinking about the research from Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who's synonymous with the flow or immersion in learning. We've got an intense focus linked to a clear objective, allow students to have a choice, but as a teacher, I engineer those choices, and then I provide immediate feedback along the way. So that's essentially the resource here. I've got it here all on the page, but by me presenting it one at a time, and you can watch back this video, you can see how I've shaped the 5-minute memory plan to kind of match everything I have unpicked in my new book, The 5-Minute Memory. Now, before I get carried away and distracted with just general gossip and things like that, let me just share my screen here and show you how to find things on the website. So just bear with me, a little bit of admin. Right, here we go. So the first link I've got for you is this one. It's just loading up. So this is a new membership resource, 9 ways to reduce cognitive load. That's for members. I won't show you all the resources behind the scenes. I'll save that for next week. My plan is to do a video every Monday night this academic year. So if you click on resources, the 5-minute memory plan here, just download it to your basket, check out your PDF, all the instructions. There is the link there. And that's straightforward and easy enough to find. I guess that's pretty much it from me. I guess just to kind of finish, I've had a really hectic first week back to school. Started 10 days ago, actually 7,000 miles, 5 training days in 4 schools. So hello to teachers in the International Community School in Oman, Jordan, to teachers at the EF Academy International in Oxford. A really interesting context, that one. 6th form international boarding school. I've never come across a setting like that before. To all the fabulous teachers and lecturers at Runshaw College in Leyland in Lancashire. That was a great event. I had a great fun there. And to teachers in Kingston Academy in Hereford. What a beautiful part of the world that you work in. Tomorrow I'm working with teachers at Stanground Academy in Peterborough, and off to Pressfeld the next day for teachers at Pressfeld Independent School in Shrewsbury, and then off to Hayling Island near Southampton for a couple of days to work at Hayling College with Martin Rea and attend Pedigree, Hampshire. So yeah, it's another very busy week. I've spent most of the weekend recovering. I know many teachers are already back to school, some today, some tomorrow, some the next day, but pretty much most of us here in at least the Northern Hemisphere are getting back to work. So I'm going to leave it there. My plan is to do this once a week with some resources. As ever, thanks for watching. Any questions, ping them back to me. I'll share the resource downloads, answer any questions, and most of all, have a great academic year ahead. Bye for now.